Hi, Matthew. How are you today?
Good.
Good. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me and letting me observe your classroom again. Um, okay, so I observed your class. Last time we met, we talked about control statements. And so I said that I was going to come and observe your class and see how you do. So control statements, we meant, ways that we keep the kids at task, right? Okay. So I wanted to start off with any ideas or comments that you might have
About last week.
Yeah, about the data, like what I.
Yeah, definitely could have been more, but for the most part, I liked how most of my students are working. The majority of them. There was definitely a couple kids who I could have honed in more on. There's also a few kids asleep, and I mean, keep going over them, ask them to stay up, like tell them to get a drink of water, but a lot of them like tricky situations. Like one student works at night and kind of comes after work, and
Right.
like you gotta find the right motivation.
Right. Well, I was actually going to say, as we went through our conference right now, that you are dealing with a very specific population of students. Some of them are like young adults, some of them have kids, some of them have jobs, some of them are like helping mom, take care of the kids at home. So there are all sorts of circumstances, I think, that play into what's happening with your kids, while they're here. I wanted to start with what I thought you did well.
Okay.
I thought that you used positive reinforcement as often as you could. Whenever there was a chance for you to say that, they were doing a good job, you said it, which I thought was really great. I think that you're very accessible to students. I think you're very present in the room. You are not busy with anything else except with just wanting to help the student in your room, which I think is really great. I think that you're like assessing and monitoring their progress really well. You were up, you were walking around, you were, checking out what they were up to. Some of the things that I thought you could do more of, I would definitely think about setting expectations in your classroom. Whether it was like something that you posted on the wall, or if you wanted to just remind students or just sort of be more consistent. I don't know. I'm not sure if the students are clear with what your expectations are, or if they know, but we're not totally like enforcing them. It wasn't totally clear to me visiting your classroom. I would use data to monitor and improve their progress. And so by that, I mean like every once in a while, I would actually print out their scores report.
Yep.
Because I feel like it's a great tool for them to really see what they're getting done. So like for this one, this is our buddy E. And he's doing okay. I think his absences have a lot to do with his progress or whatever. I know, from my experience with him that he's not someone that comes to school all the time, unfortunately. But you can take this out and you can show him. You can be like, Erwin, what can we do? What are your goals, Erwin? Like, what would you like to see happening? Okay, and I know that doesn't specifically pertain to the idea of like the control statements that we're talking about, but it's just sort of like an idea.
Yeah.
I found it, helpful. And then the same thing with Kay. And so I feel like he comes to school more often, but it's just sort of a little more just doing his own thing. So, are they doing enough while they're here? What are their goals? How do you keep them motivated? They're all different. One thing I can say for the kids in your class, your students, I think that they all really like you, which I think is really important. It can be sort of like a blessing and a curse at the same time, though, because sometimes it becomes difficult to be like consistent and, because you're getting along so well.
Yeah.
Minimize cell phone use, and I say that specifically because I'm going to say the next thing, which is I think you need to speak up a little bit more to the students in your classroom. Because at the end of the day, when I took all my data and typed it out or looked for actual control statements, I didn't actually find a lot. There wasn't a lot of times where you were just like specifically saying like to get back on task. And there were a couple of instances where I thought you could have. or that you should have, or at least you should have felt empowered to do so.
Okay.
So I think that might be your thing. I'm not sure if I think you know what the expectations of the school is, and I think that you know what works for the students, but I also think that you might need to know that you can say something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions about that?
Not really.
Okay.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? I don't want you to feel like you're not doing a great job, because you are. Like your kids are at task most of the time. The ones that are working continuously are just doing their thing, and it's great. But like you said, there's those few that, and I think those are the ones that you might want to work on a little bit, as far as just sort of setting those expectations. And so then at that point you can use control statements, because they understand what you're expecting of them. And then one last piece I would just add to, as far as just your classroom management. I don't know what's going on as far as like passes and stuff like that. I just noticed Z was in and out of your classroom a lot. I didn't know what the deal was, because I'm just there to observe, but I didn't know if you had something like set up with him where it was okay for him to do that, or if
Zach's technically working in math, but
Okay.
I mean, Mr. B, like, he has a lot of math students, so most of the time, like, he'll send one or two over to me.
they visit.
And
Okay.
as long as they're working, like, consistently getting things done, they can stay. But
Okay.
yeah, Zach's kind of on a short leash too,
Yeah,
because he has attention problems. But last time I saw him Friday, we actually made good progress.
Good.
He's really started to come along, like, individualized attention, like he does.
Relationships are really important to him. I feel like when he is feeling comfortable with the teacher, he's more likely to be motivated.
Yeah.
If he doesn't like you, he just is like, he won't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's good. So that's what I mean.
Yeah, control statements especially work well with him, because he really does have the attention
Mhm,
problems.
mhm. He has to be brought back.
Like, Zach, what are you doing? Zach, you're not supposed to be on your phone, Zach.
Mhm.
Like, focus, attention.
And I would just keep working at that. It's small baby steps with him. I feel like he demands a lot of attention, but he's also like really, it's also really great when he gets through something, because he's very excited about it. So it's worth that kind of difficulty. But yeah, so I mean, moving forward, I guess I would just, if I were you, I would just try to, like I said, I would set expectations. If it means like posting it on the wall, I would avoid distractions, and by distractions I mean specifically like when somebody comes in the room and high fives, or they talk about the weekend, or whatever. I know that the kid that's having that interaction doesn't mind, but the minute somebody comes through the door and starts talking, the other kids are looking up, and so when they do that, they're sort of disrespecting their peers, because they're distracting them. It's not supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect example of where you could use a control statement, like, excuse me, but that's not acceptable. You can't do that in my classroom. Things like that. I just want you to feel empowered. I want you to feel like you can say and you can be in charge of what's happening in your room without the consequences of like having a student get mad at you, because they won't. And if you're consistent with them, they will come around. Okay. If there's anything I can do for you, let me know. I hope this was helpful. And yeah, we'll talk later.
All right.
Thanks,
Good.
Matthew.